you guys? It's Naseem here. Now, before I start the video, I want to personally thank the iPhone 14 for being the worst upgrade of 2022. Now, the definition of a cash grab, according to encyclopedia.com, is that it's an undignified or unprincipled acquisition of a large sum of money with little to no effort. And every year we get a product that is produced by a company that is basically used as nothing but a pure cash grabbing tactic. Samsung had the Galaxy Note 20. The Dallas Cowboys charged people tickets to watch them in the playoffs. And with the latest form of cash grabbing, Apple has released the iPhone 14. Now, all jokes aside, the iPhone 14 is actually a really solid phone when you use it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's literally the exact same phone as the iPhone 13, from the chip to the display to the software, all the way down to the battery. So just like the definition says, Apple is getting a large sum of money from the iPhone 14 sales with very little effort to improve it. So if you're someone who is deciding between the iPhone 13 and 14, get the 13. I'm not going to waste your time, but if you are someone who still wants to get the 14, I'm going to share my experience with you because, again, it's a really solid phone that gave me little to no problems on a daily basis. Now, starting with the design, the iPhone 14 has kept that signature look from the previous versions, which is good and bad at the same time. It's good because they've decided to stick to a design that people like, but it's bad because there's no innovation whatsoever. I really wish that they added the dynamic island notch, since there's no improvements from last year's version, or even put USB-C, or maybe even make the screen 120 Hz. I don't know, but some type of improvement will help. And besides the minor improvements they could have made, this phone looks the exact same as the iPhone 13, from the power button, volume rockers, and mute switch, all the way down to the speakers, lightning port, and the back. But looking at its color, the version that I have is blue, and this is easily my favorite color in recent years. It has the darker blue matte sides along with a baby blue glass back that gives it the right amount of depth and results in a really good looking device. And now looking at the display, the iPhone 14 has a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR display that, just like the iPhone 13, was pretty good. Whenever I was scrolling through my phone, it looked very nice, everything looked good. The responsiveness was very precise, and I had no complaints about the overall feel. The only problem that I had with it was the refresh rate. Now, the fact that it's 60 Hz is ridiculous, and I know that many people won't mind if their screen is 120 Hz or 60 Hz, but if that's the case, Apple shouldn't be charging over $800 for a below average spec phone. Also, whenever I was scrolling through apps, it felt a little laggy, and you could tell the frame rate dropped as soon as you started going through the app. So hopefully Apple can implement a higher refresh rate on the base models of iPhone. Now, when it comes to the 14, the bezels are pretty small. Like right here, you can see that they're wrapped around nicely around the screen and are much cleaner overall. The notch is also very small and thinner, so it's not very noticeable when compared to older iPhones. Now, when it comes to brightness, the iPhone 14 is at 800 nits, which is much dimmer than the iPhone 14 Pro, and I really noticed the difference when I was outside. I had trouble seeing the screen when I was outside, and because I live in LA, there's much less shade, so there are many times where I couldn't see at all when the sun was out. And now when it comes to the size of the 14, I can't say whether or not you will love it or hate it, but I do want to list some pros and cons that you can look out for. Now, the pros of having a nicely sized screen is that the viewing experience is still really good. It's easy to use compared to the 14 Plus, where I would struggle to reach the top of the screen, and it fits in my pocket easier no matter the size of my pants. And the only con is that it's not as big as the Plus or Pro Max, so the viewing experience won't be as good, but 6.1 inches is not really that small, so there's really no true cons. But again, I wanted to let you guys decide if the pros are worth the upgrade because everyone's needs are different. Now, another problem that I had with the display was the fact that Apple still hasn't added a fingerprint sensor. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that the iPhone 14 has one of the best facial recognitions in the game with Face ID, but it would have been nice if they added an extra function when unlocking my phone. The resolution and viewing experience of the 14's display is an amazing benefit when it comes to using the phone. I was able to see everything very clearly when watching videos. Playing games on it was as fun as ever, and I want to give you guys an idea of what it will look like when watching something and playing the game. Now, before I start my workout, the first thing that I had to do was stretch to make sure I didn't pull anything. Then after that, I did some suicides to get myself pumped up. Now, the iPhone 14 has a 3200 milliamp hour battery that is the exact same as the iPhone 13 and was easily able to last me all day with no problem, even with heavy use. And mind you, I'm the type of person that is usually on my phone all day, planning B-roll, writing scripts, shooting videos, scrolling through social media, watching YouTube videos, and texting my friends. And I'm usually getting over 7 hours of on-screen time a day, and I only charge my phone when I'm sleeping. I also was using my 14 on power saving mode, but most of the time I did use it to the max, and it was still able to perform very well. So if you do get the 14, battery won't be an issue. And if I could give a quick estimate, I would say that my battery is usually on 20% by the end of the day, which is really good, but still less than my percentage of the 14 Pro Max. Now right now my battery health is at 100%, which hopefully will keep up longer. Previous iPhones are known to have the battery significantly drop after a few months, so hopefully the 14 breaks that streak. Now the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it came to the battery was the charging, and if I'm being honest, the charging isn't that great in terms of speed. It would take me well over an hour to get to 100%, but like I said before, you only need one charge, so I think that the long-lasting battery is a great trade-off. Now looking at software, the iPhone 14 supports iOS 16, and just like any other iPhone, you have the app drawer that holds and categorizes all your apps. You have that new wallpaper system that is a huge upgrade and feels much smoother on this phone, and you have many more minor things that make the phone feel even sleeker. But despite the phone feeling sleeker, there were many times where my 14 would freeze on me and I would have to restart it just for it to correct itself. And this didn't happen every day, but it did happen a bit more than my 13. And besides the frequent freezes, most of the time the software was very smooth and worked well. It felt just like the 14 Pro. And I feel like most of you guys will realize that in terms of software, it's not that much different from other models. I also decided to test out some games on the 14. I played many different games which can really test out the chip. And as you can see, it held up very well and I didn't get any lags while playing. Now the haptics weren't as great if I'm being honest. There were many times where I'll have my phone on vibrate, but will miss out on some messages because I couldn't hear it. So overall, I would say that they're a downgrade from last year. Now the final thing that I wanted to note was that the 14 will be getting 5 to 6 years worth of software upgrades. So when it comes to longevity, it'll definitely have you covered. Now just like the 13, the 14 has some really loud speakers that were pretty good whenever I used them. I would usually use them in the house whenever watching videos or scrolling on social media or even YouTube. And I didn't have to turn it all the way up because of how loud they were on the lower tiers of volume. And I tested out how they sounded when playing music. And if I'm being honest, they're loud, but the quality isn't the greatest when you turn the volume all the way up. I also used my 14 as my alarm and I had no problem waking up to it. I didn't have to set multiple alarms and I didn't really have to worry too much about receiving important notifications whenever I turned on my ringer. And right here, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how the speakers sound.
Overall, he would be a star. Bryant drains a three. His first points of the night. In the way that really is his offensive game. That shot right there. That would be good as a step.
Now the iPhone 14 has a 12 megapixel main camera along with a 12 megapixel front and 12 megapixel ultra wide. And based on my usage over the past couple of months, I would say that the pictures look amazing. Now starting with the zoom modes, the 14 has a couple of different zoom modes and of course the quality gets dumbed down a bit once you get to the ultra wide, but I found everything to still look really great compared to other smartphones. The shutter speed was very good from the start. I decided to test this out by shooting moving cars, and as you can see, the camera was able to capture most cars beautifully no matter how fast they were going, so I was pretty satisfied. Now next up, I want to show you guys how the camera performed in different environments. And the first environment I will be starting with is daytime. Now looking at the outside photos, we can see that there's a great shadow of depth whenever I'm taking pictures along with a nice blur, and this is scaled all the way up once I use the portrait mode that Apple has always been good at. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, different aspects of nature, and I can honestly say that the 14 held up very well in these environments and I'm really impressed. Now in a night setting, I would pretty much say that everything looked good. The camera will automatically switch to night mode, and once I snap the shot, it will brighten up everything in the photo so that you can see very clearly. Again, it looks really good, and the only complaint that I have is the shutter speed when going into night mode. Now taking a look at the inside photos, the 14 was able to capture everything very nice, and I found the pictures to be slightly more detailed than the 13 Pro in terms of sharpness. Even when taking selfies, you can see how the camera handles already good lighting to produce an overall nicely taken photo. My skin tone looked really good and the sharpness was at its peak. And now when it comes to shooting video, the 14 is easily the best phone that you can buy in this price range. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from, but I prefer to shoot my videos in 4K at 30 frames per second because not only does it look good in 4K, but the 30 frames makes it look smooth, but not as smooth as 60 frames would. Now the stabilization was out of this world. I would shoot all my videos with my phone, so whenever I'm shooting my subject, I can use everything handheld and the movements will be very smooth, which was very impressive. And for fun, I decided to try out the new action mode, and if I'm being honest, it was insanely good, but for most people, you'll be completely fine with regular stabilization, especially since action mode will also be dumbed down in video quality, so it's really not needed. So all in all, I would definitely say that the iPhone 14 has an amazing video camera that'll give you some consistently good shots. So if you're someone who wants to shoot content or you just want a solid camera, the 14 has got you covered. Also, here are some extra videos that I was able to get. So here's the final question. Is the iPhone 14 a good phone to buy in 2022? Now, like I said before, it's a good phone that I think many people will be satisfied with, but there are better options, especially with the iPhone 13 still available. And by better options, I mean the iPhone 13 has a better battery life, it has less bugs, and it gives you the exact same experience, so you won't be missing out on so much. But if you are someone who does prefer the iPhone 14, it's definitely a phone that you'll be satisfied with. And it's also slightly cheaper than the 14 Plus, so that's an added benefit. And there it is, you guys, my review on the iPhone 14. And also, if you guys have any questions for me, you can ask them in the comment section down below. And if you guys made it to the end of this video, I would like to say thank you for sticking around. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It will be very appreciated. And as far as social media, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.